Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week's 10 days for today's second video. It'll take us around the 27th of November. So it's going to be turning colder in the next few days. In fact, it's already chillier today. With morning rays, sunshine, and a southeasterly wind bringing slightly cooler air in from off the continent than what we've had recently. You will notice things becoming colder in the days ahead. Winds are going to get into the east, and that easterly wind really will have quite a chill to it by the time we get through to the early part of next week. Now, from the middle to the latter part of next week, got a lot of complications in terms of this cold spell. I'm going to talk you through the model output in a moment, one by one. We'll have a look at the GFS operational, the GFS parallel, the ECMWF, and the GEM. And you'll see why there's so much uncertainty now in terms of this cold spell. Generally, to get a cold spell locked into this country, it's always very difficult, and along the way you'll always get a lot of twists and turns and chopping and changing from the model. Sometimes they will back away, sometimes they'll go for it, and even before the beast from the east back in the end of February, I think even that had a couple of twists and turns before we finally sort of locked into it. The only cold spell of note that I can remember that didn't have lots of chopping and changing before it was the December to remember. So that one, as we approach the cold sort of final week to 10 days of November, that one was modelled very consistently. I don't think there was any particular model run that dropped the idea of that cold weather. And then as we went through the cold December, that exceptionally extraordinary cold December in 2010, with all of that snow, generally I think the models behaved very, very well with that one. But that's the exception. Most cold spells in this country will involve, as we go up towards them, will involve the models chopping and changing, twisting and turning, and that's what's happening today. So having a big wobble with the model output, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a significantly colder spell of weather isn't on the way. Never, on the other hand, it doesn't guarantee that a cold spell of weather or a significant cold spell of weather is on the way. So I'm going to talk you through everything that's going on in a moment. It all sounds rather complicated, but you'll see what's happening as we go through the charts. Got to say a big thank you and give a shout out to our latest patrons. So we've had two new patrons via Patreon. So we're now up to 42 patrons in total. A big thank you to all 42 of you for becoming patrons for Gazways. Now, our first patron wants to remain anonymous, and that's absolutely fine. If anybody wants to remain anonymous, give a donation either via Patreon or from PayPal. If they want to give a donation, but they would rather stay anonymous, not get a mention in the videos, that is absolutely fine. Just leave a little note with the video, just letting it, with the donation I should say, just leave a little note telling us that you'd rather not have your name mentioned in the video, and that's not a problem. So I'll just say big thank you to our latest anonymous patron. You know who you are. And again, a big thank you for becoming a patron for Gazways. Our second patron is Mark Cunliffe. So a big thank you to Mark for becoming our 42nd patron for Gazways. If you would like to become a patron for Gazways, we're hoping to get to 50 before Christmas. If you would like to become a patron for Gazways, then all you have to do is come to the Gazways Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge any ongoing monthly donation to Gazways. Anything as little as $1 a month, so it doesn't have to be a large amount of money whatsoever. But that's how you become a patron for Gazways. The other way of giving a donation to Gazways is via PayPal. And I'm going to say a big thank you to Simon Latimer for becoming the latest donor to Gazways via PayPal. Big thank you to Simon for his very generous and kind donation, and the lovely note that he left with his donation as well. So this is an idea that you leave a one-off donation to Gazways via PayPal, whereas Patreon is like an ongoing thing. This is a one-off donation, and again, to do this, all you have to do is come to the Gazways PayPal page. I'm on the page right now. We link to both Patreon Patreon and PayPal in the description, YouTube, and all the pages at Gav's Weather Vids. You just sign into your PayPal account. Most people have one of those these days. And then very straightforwardly, you can give any amount of money that you would like to Gav's Weather Vids via PayPal. And again, a big thank you to all of the donors for Gav's Weather Vids. Special thank you to Simon. Special thank you as well to Mark and our anonymous patron. All three of you have done something very special for Gav's Weather Vids. So again, a big thank you to all of the patrons, all of the donors, for their very kind generosity. Right, so we get on with the video, and we're going to start off Central England temperature. I said that I thought it might tick up to 10 degrees yesterday. Indeed, it has. But it should be there as high as it's going to get this month. Provisionally, up to the 16th of November, we're standing at 10.0, an anomaly of 2.5 degrees above average, so a really warm first half to November. It's just about matching October's CET, and that is impressive considering we should be in a rapidly cooling time of the year. So the CET has probably reached its peak now. Don't you go any higher than that, and it should gradually start to drop over the next couple of weeks. Where we finish up with this is very unexpected. It's very uncertain where we're going to finish up with the CET for this November. I suspect we probably will be a little bit above average, but I don't think it'll be a huge deviation. We shall see, however. Right, so these are the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast charts. The black line here tells us where we've been with the AO, the red line, so the M, where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. It's not driving anything. It just tells you what the atmosphere is doing, looking at the North Pole. So when the AO is in its positive phase, you will have low pressure up over the pole. And at this time of year, that will mean that you strengthen the westerly flow, the zonal flow. You generally have low pressure around Iceland, high pressure it will be around the Azores, and you will strengthen that westerly flow. Conversely, when the Arctic oscillation is in its negative phase, you'll have high pressure over the pole, over the Arctic. You'll have blocking, northern blocking, over the Arctic, and so this is the route that pushes cold air out of the Arctic and down into the mid-latitude. So when you have a negative AO, generally this will be a signal for colder weather. It's not quite that straightforward because it always depends where the blocking is sitting. The exact position of the block is critical to determine where that cold air will get pushed out. So it's possible you'll have a blocking area of high pressure, but you'll push the cold air down into America, or you might push it down into Japan. But generally our coldest and most blocked periods in history tend to coincide with negative periods of the Arctic oscillation. So back to the summer, the AO has been in its positive phase. We've had a long run of positivity of the Arctic oscillation. We went negative with the AO at the end of October. That's the first time we've been negative with the AO, except for the odd day or two back in the summer, but it was the most sort of sustained period of negativity of the AO, going right way back to March. We got through to the early part of November and we ticked the AO up a little bit, but generally keeping it close to neutral. Now we're negative with the AO, and the GFS ensembles are forecasting us to stay very negative with the Arctic oscillation. Look at this. We keep for the next week the AO in properly negative territory. And after that, there's a possibility as we move towards the end of November and towards the start of December, there's a possibility we might go even more negative with the Arctic oscillation. Some of these GFS ensemble members really are doing a crash with the AO. They're dropping down to very, very negative territory indeed, kind of like -4, -5, -6 on the scale. Probably won't go that negative, but you can see the trend is very much, except for that one outlier member up there, the trend very much is to keep the AO negative through the rest of November, possibly even into the start of December. And you would tend to associate that with an increased risk of colder conditions. But as I say, it is very much determined by where the blocking will be sitting. That tells us we will have blocking over the Arctic, we will have northern blocking, we will have high pressure over the pole, but the exact position is going to be the critical factor. At the same time, the NAO also looks like it's trending into negative territory. So again, this is the NAO observed and forecast chart. The black line tells where we've been with the NAO. The GFS, red lines at the end, telling us where the GFS symbols forecasting the NAO to go. We have both the indexes, the AO and the NAO, were in positive territory through the summer. You see all of this positivity of the AO with its black line just here going through to middle of October. Then a drop takes place through the second half of October associated with the cold snap that we had at the end of October. Since then, we've generally been sort of weekly positive to neutral with the NAO. We're around neutral at the moment. GFS Ensembles forecasting the NAO to go into positive territory, into negative territory, I should say, through the second half of November and even possibly into the start of December. So again, we've got both of our indexes. We've got the NAO and the AO both in negative territory. And this should go along with a substantially increased risk of cold weather for the UK and for Northern Europe. When you've got both the indexes in sync with one another like this, you would typically expect really quite cold conditions in our part of the world at this time of the year. So from an index perspective, from the AO and the NAO, it all looks on course to have a really quite a cold end to November. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8 feet, is an area in the actual high pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. They're the mean flowcharts for 7 to 10 days time, which would take us to around the 27th of November. So you see with the ECMWF, we've got this big red area sitting to the north and northwest of the UK. That's a big area of high pressure, but it's kind of like in the North Atlantic going to the south of Greenland. To the south of it, we've got this deep trough of low pressure as well through the Atlantic. And so it's just not quite lined up right to give us particularly cold weather. This trough of low pressure in the Atlantic is a complicating factor because that is bringing in a more sort of southerly, southwesterly type flow. And the high pressure to our north just isn't quite in the right position to be bringing cold air out of the pole. You see this deep trough here that's across northeast Europe and western Russia. Now that's got very seriously cold air associated with it. Real Siberian Arctic air is plunging south through the west of Russia and into northeastern Europe. But for us, this ridge we've got in the North Atlantic and south of Greenland is not really bringing down true Arctic air. Most of that's going off in that direction and down there. And this low pressure in the Atlantic just is bringing up kind of like a southerly southwesterly flow. It's very close to being a properly cold scenario, but it's just not quite lined up correctly. So this is what I just explained with the Arctic Oscillation. You can have the Arctic Oscillation negative, you can have northern blocking, that's fine, but you've got to get the northern blocking in exactly the right position to pull cold air out of the pole and down into the UK and northern Europe. And that's always the difficult bit. Once you get into these protracted spells of cold weather, you can go off and running with them, and they can last quite a long time. But the problem is always getting in to the blocking, getting it in exactly the right position. It's just not quite right there from the ECMWF. Now, the GFS is looking like this. It's very similar, but it probably has more of a blocking signal, actually. So we've got the high pressure through Greenland. It extends to the northern UK and Scandinavia. Also, it almost goes up to the top of the pole. It does go up to the top of the pole as well. Then we've got this low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic. So that's trying to bring in kind of like a southwesterly type flow. And then this deep low, again, plunging through the northeast of Europe and the west of Russia. That's taking extremely cold air down into the west of Russia out of the Arctic. So, again, it's very close to producing something really notably cold, and it will only take very slight adjustments to give us a really cold end to November. But again, it just isn't quite right. It's just not exactly perfect to be bringing down substantially colder weather. It will be a cool or cold end to November with this amount of high pressure to our north. It's just whether we're going to get anything notably cold and whether we can get some snow going. That's going to be the interesting factor with this. Just how cold is it going to get, and will there be any snow? These are the GFS ensembles. We're looking at Barnstaple today down in northern Devon. Someone's asked me to have a look at Barnstaple. So the red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Barnstaple, starting off very mild with those upper air temperatures at the moment. So we're starting off very mild with those upper air temperatures at the moment. They're going to be dropping away through the weekend. Start of next week, this is the cold weather coming through with those easy winds. That's still on course. It's this period just here through the second half of next week that's causing the uncertainty. That's when we've got that low pressure down to our southwest, and we're trying to bring up kind of like a southerly type wind, which brings some milder air towards us. Now, as we go through to the end of November and the start of December, the general trend within the GFS ensembles is to have quite a lot of cool weather. Most of these ensemble members are below average, maybe quite substantially below average as well. So again, we could have something quite a lot colder as we go through to the final days of November and the start of December. But you see, there are also ensemble members that are on the milder side. So that just highlights the uncertainty from around Thursday or Friday onwards, which is this period just here. That's when the uncertainty is creeping in. Also more in way of precipitation, so a lot of dry weather over the next 2 or 3 days. Then after that, the precipitation spikes are increasing. So could be cold and unsettled, could be relatively mild and unsettled as we go to the end of November. All options do seem to be on the table, which is probably very surprising to you given the data we just saw with the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations both looking really quite negative. Temperature anomalies are looking like this. On the cooler than average side now for the UK and for Ireland from the 17th to the 25th of November. Below average temperatures really for the UK and Ireland. Much of France, Germany, Belgium, Holland also coming out with colder than average temperature anomalies. Precipitation anomalies pretty much on the drier than average side, but expect those to trend a little bit more unsettled potentially in the next day or so. Right, let's talk you through the general charts then. So this is the GFS operational run for Tuesday. This covers the period of the weekend forecast, of course. So we've got the high pressure sitting to our north up there. We've got low pressure down to the south, and we're bringing in those easterly winds. And so those winds are probably going to be bringing showers to the east, and they might merge into longer spells of rain as we go through into Wednesday. We get this area of low pressure moving up from the south. Still got the blocking up to the north. We've got this cold easterly wind coming in from the east. And this low pressure could well bring a very cold and wet day across England and Wales on Wednesday as the rain gets to higher ground, say the Welsh Mountains, the Pennines, the Staffordshire and Derbyshire moorlands. You could well get some hill snow developing on Wednesday, but generally this is looking like a rain event that we have on Wednesday. Then we go through to Thursday and Friday, and you see what's happening with this low pressure. It's kind of moving away to the southwest. So by Friday, it's sitting off the southwest of Ireland, southwest England. Still with a very strong blocking signal up to the north of us. So still got high pressure up there. But you see, we're generally bringing kind of like a southerly flow up from the south, kind of like a southerly wind. So whilst it will be rather cool, yes, in the second half of next week, we probably aren't as cold in the second half of the week as we will be, say, around Tuesday or Wednesday when we have those easterly winds. We run in towards the extended range and we find this high pressure sitting close to the UK, probably giving quite a lot of dry weather next weekend. That looks like it could be rather foggy to me. We might start to fog things up next weekend. And still quite chilly, quite cold then as well. We move up towards day 10, and this GFS run then wants to have high pressure sitting just to our west. So you notice it's not getting up to Greenland. We're not getting this high pressure up to here like we was with the GFS in earlier runs that we've looked at previous week. We've generally been seeing high pressure becoming focused towards Greenland in this day 7 to 10 time frame. Now on this operational run of GFS, we're keeping this high pressure very close or just to the west of the UK, which means this northerly wind that is still happening is actually pushing down into Scandinavia and Central Europe. But again, a very slight adjustment. All it takes is a very, very slight adjustment just to move this high pressure up to here, as opposed to having it just there, would pull us into those northerly winds. So it certainly isn't far away from still becoming a notably cold spell. This just got to line the high pressure up correctly. In the extended range with the GFS, that's how we look. All gets rather complicated, but the basic idea is that high pressure is still to our north and to our west, with these areas of low pressure close to the UK, always threatening to bring colder air down from the north. So we still remain blocked generally, and in an unusual weather pattern right the way up to the start of December. That's the operational GFS. This is the parallel GFS. So this is running in parallel to the operational GFS, and next year this will become the newest version of the operational GFS. We always give a model a makeover and an upgrade every year. Whilst they're doing it, whilst they're getting the new version going, they like to have the two running in parallel. But next year, this will become our main operational GFS run. Again, we start off on Tuesday looking very similar. We've got high pressure sitting to the north of the UK up here. We've got low pressure down to the south. We bring in those easterly winds. So again, they could well be bringing showers into east parts of the country. They might turn wintry over high ground. Now, this is Wednesday, and it's as early as Wednesday, but we've got uncertainty. Notice this low pressure is in a different position on Wednesday. The low pressure is across southwestern England as opposed to being somewhere like here. So this low pressure doesn't get as far north on Wednesday. Consequently, the blocking is stronger to our northeast over Scandinavia, and so we still keep quite a cold east-northeast wind going into Wednesday, and probably restrict wet weather down to more southern and southwestern parts of the country. So it's as early as Wednesday that we've got great uncertainty. That low pressure then pulls away from us through Thursday and Friday on the parallel run of the GFS. Notice nowhere near as much of a southerly influence here as we go through to Friday. Still with a substantial amount of blocking up to our north. We've never really introduced milder air from the south, except possibly in the far south and southwest. Winds are generally still coming from an easterly direction. So this is a colder solution. As we go into next weekend, look at this. We take that high pressure up to Greenland. So the parallel run of the GFS is still moving this high pressure as a major blocking feature up to Greenland. Low pressure is underneath it. If you follow the isobars back, you can see we've got very cold air coming down from the northeast, or increasingly cold air coming down from the northeast. And so this is a much, much colder GFS solution compared to the operational run. We move up to day 10 and looking increasingly cold. We've got a deep cold pool sitting over Scandinavia up here with all these blue colours. So we've got a deep cold pool up there. We've still got the blocking high pressure around Greenland. Low pressure is down here. So that's just a properly cold solution. That would be seeing daytime temperatures struggling to get much above freezing, and I suspect there would be snow in northern and eastern parts of the country as well. Now, this low pressure to west of Biscay, that gets quite interesting in the extended range because there's a big temperature contrast. So we are within cold air. There's the -5 isotherm. There's the deep cold pool that's sitting just to our northeast, but it's relatively mild down to the southwest. So there's a big temperature gradient. And what happens is that this low pressure becomes quite a major feature just to our south. And that could be bringing heavy snow and blizzards, would you believe, along the south coast and through the channel on Wednesday, 28th of November. So different to what the operational run of the GFS was showing. And the upshot is that as that low pressure clears away into France, we keep the winds in from the north or northeasterly direction. The blocking never really goes anywhere. So as we get to the end of this parallel GFS run on Monday the 3rd of December, we still look really cold, actually. Still quite a lot of high pressure to our north, not quite as much blocking, but still a fair amount of high pressure to our north. Still these areas of low pressure dumbbelling around the UK, and just really quite cold and wintry, or maybe even very cold and wintry into the start of December with the GFS parallel run. And then this is the ECMWF. I hope you're able to follow this. It's a very, very complicated situation, but I'm just trying to explain why we've got so much uncertainty now. We've got the ECMWF with this high pressure over Scandinavia on Tuesday. There's the easterly wind, so that's all straightforward. No problems there. It's Wednesday through to Thursday, but we've got uncertainty. This is where the ECM places the low pressure by Thursday, again to the west-southwest of the country. We still have high pressure up to our north, but again, we're just bringing the air up from more of a southerly type direction, similar to what the GFS operational run was showing. In the extended range, that's how we look, moving up to a week away, Saturday 24th of November. We've got low pressure out to our west and southwest. High pressure is all through here. So again, if you follow the isobars back, that tells you where the air is going to be coming from. The air is going to be coming from that kind of direction. Excuse me. So not particularly cold, but probably chilly, probably damp, and pretty uninspiring conditions, really. Now, the ECM does have a go at raising pressure over Greenland, actually. So we have got some yellow colours appearing around Greenland. But again, we saw it on the high anomaly flow chart. We've still got low pressure underneath it, and the low pressure's in that kind of position. Again, just not quite lining up correctly to give us cold weather. And then this is how we finish up with the ECMWF at day 10, Tuesday 27th of November. Low pressure is down here, still keeping the wind kind of light from the south to southwest. But again, wouldn't take much of an adjustment. We have got easterly winds through there. It wouldn't take much of an adjustment to be pulling this cold air out of Scandinavia and down into the UK. So that finishes poised and uncertain which way it will go beyond day 10. And then finally, the GEM looking like this. So we start on Tuesday with the high pressure up over Scandinavia, low pressures to the south. We're bringing in those easterly winds. That's all fine. It's all completely straightforward. We go to Wednesday and then on to Thursday, similar to the GFS parallel run this time. We don't make as much of this low pressure to ourselves. So it's Wednesday that's critical, Wednesday to Thursday, with this area of low pressure. We don't make as much of it. We push it through France into the Bay of Biscay. And so this keeps us in a cold easterly wind. There's no sort of southerly wind. You follow the isobars back, that always tells you where the air is originated from. So in the very far south and southwest, we are bringing up some slightly sort of southerly winds. But for most parts of the country, keeping the wind in from the east. Towards the end of next week, that's how we look. Again, high pressure blocking close to Greenland. It's actually centred over Iceland. Again, follow the isobars back. The air is originating from kind of like a northeasterly direction, so looking pretty cold. And then we extend this blocking signal with the GEM close to Greenland and Iceland. To our north with the low pressure further south. Again, follow those isobars back. That tells you where the air is going to be coming from. The air is in that, the isobars are in that sort of direction. So the air is still coming from the east or from the northeast, remaining cold through towards day 10. That's how we look at day 10, which is Tuesday, 27th of November. Yes, this is in line with the parallel GFS run. Really, they are subtly different, but broadly, the GEM is in line with the parallel GFS, and it's a much colder solution with low pressure and the jet stream down there, very southerly tracking jet stream, and the easterly winds along those isobars are coming into the UK. That one's looking cold up to day 10. So that explains it all. It's been a very extended video, this, because there is so much to tell you. What we can say is up to Tuesday, it's all straightforward. We're going to get the easterly wind. So we're going to cool things down, turn things colder to Tuesday. And then it's from Wednesday onwards that we have so much uncertainty. The GFS operational run and the ECM are in line with one another to turn things milder, or certainly less cold, in the second half of the week and bring up kind of like a southerly type tilt to the wind, at least for a while. The parallel GFS and the GEM, much colder. Winds remain from the east or northeast throughout next week. We don't bring up that milder incursion from the south. And they actually, particularly the GFS parallel run, goes into really quite a severe spell of weather by the time you get through to the end of November. So it's all to be revealed, as I say, with these cold spells in the UK. We tend to get a lot of chopping and changing and uncertainty. It's another one of those. So it's just a case of strap yourself in and we'll see where these model runs go over the next day or so. All will be revealed. I suspect by Monday we'll have a good idea what's going to happen. Well, let's just see how this evolves. Come back this evening when we'll have a CFS 6 month look ahead. That's going to take us just for fun from next month, from December through to May 2019. Tomorrow we've got the 12th Winter 2018-19 update. We've got the ECMWF and Meteo France seasonal model update. That'll cover the winter period, of course. We've got, hopefully, the 7th Christmas update. I'm going to fit that in. And there'll be a live chat with myself and Quandra talking about all of this and taking your questions as well. That'll be between 5 and 7 o'clock at Gav's Weather Vids tomorrow. Right, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.